Hey residents of Meepletown, today we're going to be looking at Cartographers by Jordy Adan, published by Thunderworks Games. In this game, the Queen is trying to reclaim the Northern Lands, and we as cartographers are going to go out and we're going to try to claim not only the Northern Lands, but very specific types of lands that the Queen desires, that she is going to release to us through edict. Now, if we get those lands, our reputation scores go up, and at the end of the game, whoever has the highest reputation is going to win the game. So I say, let's dive in and let's look at Cartographers. All right, residents of Meepletown, this is what Cartographers looks like when it's set up and ready to roll. Now here is my map where I'm going to be drawing out these lands that I'm going to flip over in this deck, and I'll talk about that here in just one second. But you're also going to see A, B, C, and D, which these are going to be the ways that our maps are going to score depending on which season it is. So as you see here in the spring, which we always start with, we're going to score A and B. Then whenever it comes to the summer, we'll score B and C, the fall, C and D, and finally in the winter, we'll score D and A. So we'll go all the way back to A, meaning we are going to score each of these twice over the course of the game. I'm going to read these through really quick so that you can know how we're going to score. Now these are all they're different every time we play the game, where you actually shuffle your cards. You're going to put these out, so there's nice variability in setup and gameplay. So I absolutely love how these change, and they're every single time. That's nice. All right, so right here on this card, it's going to say that each one reputation star, you earn one reputation star, for each row and column with at least one forest space. So every time we have a row or a column with a forest space in it, we're going to score a victory point. For Canal Lake, we're going to score reputation stars for each water space adjacent to at least one farm space. And we're going to score a reputation star for each farm space adjacent to a water space. Now, in the Great City, you may say, well, we're going to look at A and B right now, but I want to plan for the future as I'm drawing out my map, knowing that next round we're going to score C, and then even the following round we're going to score D. So this says earn one reputation star for each village space and the largest cluster of village spaces that is not adjacent to a mountain space. So here are the mountain spaces right here. So every time we want a bunch of village spaces clustered together, not touching mountains, and we're going to score a point for each of those. All right, the Cauldron says here that we're actually going to score one reputation star for each empty space surrounded on all four sides by filled spaces or by the edge of the map. So what we're going to want here with the cauldrons are empty spaces surrounded by the edge of the map or adjacently filled spaces that we filled out on our map here. All right, so let's go ahead and let's start the game. Now, there's not a ton of rules for how we can play these whenever we flip these over. So let's go ahead and flip the first one over and look at it first. Hamlet. All right, so I can draw this anywhere on my map, except for I cannot draw it on top of one of these mountain spaces. Okay. Also, after I draw my first one, I don't have to have these lands connecting. I could draw up here, then I could draw down here. I can do however I want to do that. So what this card is saying, Hamlet, this is saying that I'm going to be able to draw a village space, but I choose whether I want to do this shape or this shape. If I do this polyomino shape, I'm going to get a coin, which will give me a point at the end of each round, the end of this round and the subsequent rounds. And I can also draw these in any orientation I want. So if I'm looking over here at Great City for the future, this would give me a lot of points in the Great City. Of course, this would give me points now and in the future as well. What am I going to do? Should I just go ahead and so that would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and draw this because I'll end up scoring 4 points for that coin. So I could put it up in the corner, which I'm thinking about doing, but when I do that, I'm getting close to that. But you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's do that anyway. So let's draw out this village space. All right, cool. So there goes my first card. That's simple. Now, one other thing I'm going to point out is the end of the round is going to be triggered when these are time values, when the time values of all the cards that we draw out equal 8. Oh, no, all right, that was quick. Okay, so a goblin attack. Now, once per round, we're going to be adding a monster into the deck. And whenever the monster is added into the deck and it's flipped over, what's going to happen is I'm actually going to pass my sheet over to my opponent according to which arrow. So I would pass this one to the right. My opponent would then draw this monster shape anywhere they want to on my map. Of course, they can't draw it on the mountains or whatever. But what happens then is at the end of the round, you're going to lose a victory point for each space that's open that's adjacent to a monster space. So it's bad that we got a monster attack, I guess, or a goblin attack, an ambush right off the bat. The good thing is we should have plenty of time to draw around those, yeah, so that the attack won't be as bad. So if you don't like Take That, you might not like this part of the game. I think it's really actually cool because it's like, all right, I got to figure out how to stop my opponent, or how to come back from what they've put onto my sheet. Now, what I'll do this time, I'll actually play the solo rules. In the solo rules, we're going to look at this corner right here. We're going to look at which spot is shown here, and we're going to start then in the bottom corner and try to draw that, and we can draw that shape very simply because we basically have nothing on our map right now. So we're going to draw a goblin attack, a monster space, and there we go. So that's it. So again, every time it's adjacent, any space adjacent to it that I don't cover up this round, we are going to lose a victory point. All right, so now the marshlands comes out, and I'm looking right here thinking this would be really great to go ahead and put because this is going to score me a ton of points for my rows and columns for this scoring thing right here. So where am I going to put it? I'm not going to put it up here. That way I can maybe grow out my great city. I could... You know what, I could put it right here and go ahead and cover up a couple of these spots, but it'll expose some of them as well. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to do this. Let's do this. I'm going to draw this right here. Whoops. One thing that I did not mention that I want to go ahead and mention now, is waiting until we got to this spot, is that whenever we fill out the spaces, the reason that these mountains have coins on them, when we fill out all 4 adjacent spaces to the mountains, we are going to get a coin. And in fact, I got a coin on the first round and I forgot to mark it here. So sorry about that, y'all. I need to mark off that I actually got that coin. Wow, I'm drawing with a Sharpie so that y'all can see it better, but man, that makes it very difficult to draw these tiny woodlands. Now, you may also notice that at the top of this one, it was different than the last one. The last one had a choice between what type of shape I'm going to draw. This one has a choice between which type of lands I'm going to use. So I have to choose between the forest land or the water lands. So I decided to do the forest land there. So that's going to be the end of that one, and I've got one space covered up there, so if I can cover up these 3, I'll get another coin. All right, so now we're at 2, 4, 5, so we're getting closer to that 8. Here we're going to draw the hinterland stream, which again, we're going to choose between farm or this riverland, and we're going to draw this shape right here. So I want rivers, and man, I want to draw this to where I can... It doesn't matter whether I do water or farmland right now, but I want to draw it to where I can put a lot of stuff around it. So let's see here. I could do, yeah, let's do this. So I'm going to draw right here. And the reason I'm going to draw right there is because this is now going to be an empty space that I can score points for because I'll have it completely surrounded in D. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll just do the farmland right now. And you may ask what these spaces are right here, and I'm hoping that we'll get to it by the end of this round. These are ruin spaces. Now, I can draw over them, but there are also cards that are going to make me draw over them. So if I draw over all my ruin spaces and it pulls a card out that says I need to draw on them, it's going to hurt me potentially because I'm going to have to I'll only get to use one space anywhere on my map, which is cool, but it only covers one space when, as you can see here, I'm covering 5 different spaces. So especially early in the game, it would be bad to not... Oh, look at that. That is perfect, actually. All right, cool. So this is an outpost ruin. So what's going to happen now is whatever card I flip over next, I'm going to have to draw and covering one of the ruin spaces. And so... Oh, no, that is not good for me. That is not good because I'm going to have to draw. Look, I want the river to touch these farmlands, but I can't because it has to be over one of these ruined spaces. So there's no way for me to do that. That really stinks. If I wouldn't have drawn it right there, it might have worked. Ah, no. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to go ahead then, and I'm going to do this 3 one here so that I can get a coin. In addition to that, let me draw these rivers here. In addition to that, I'm going to stop these 2 spaces from the monster, and I'm going to have one more space close to this. But if I so choose not to fill this in, again, that's scoring points. This empty space is now surrounded by 4 other spaces. So that's 2 points that I've gotten. I will get at the end of that round already. So that's not too bad, actually. So 2, 4, 5, 6. All right, let's see what we get. 7, 8. So this is going to be it. Yes. All right. Sweet. So now I actually have I can choose between the village or the waters, which I'm going to do the stream so that the river here, so that I can score some points for those. So this is actually perfect. Wow. Cool. And it's going to leave me another blank space there, which is fantastic because that's going to score me points on D. So this round I was getting a little worried about it, but I think it's actually going to turn out pretty well. So that is that's the end of the round there, except for once again, I forgot to mark off my coin that I got. Can't forget to do that. All right, so now we're going to score these. And so again, in the springtime, we're going to score A and B. So right here again, we're going to score a reputation point for every row and column that has a forest symbol. And it says that you can use the same forest space for rows and columns. So let's start with rows. We have 1, 2, 3 rows. Then let's go to columns. 4, 5, 6. So we score 6 points for A here in the first round. Now B, it says we're going to score a reputation star for each water space adjacent to a farm space, and each farm space adjacent to this water space. So let's start with the streams here, or the river, or the lake, maybe, the canal lake. We're going to score 1, 2, 3, because those 3 are all touching farm spaces. Here we don't score any because they're not touching, because diagonal doesn't count. It has to be adjacent. Now let's look at farm spaces. It's 3 of those, 1, 2, 3, are touching the river. So now we're going to get, again, 6 points for B. Then we're going to score 2 points for having 2 coins. And now we're going to look at monsters and empty spaces next to the monsters, adjacent empty spaces. And right now, I fill that in extremely well. I don't do that very often, actually. I generally lose a lot of points for those. Maybe not a lot, but I lose some points. So we're going to have 1, 2 empty spaces next to the monsters. Now, you may say, well, do you lose 2 points because that monster is next to an empty space and that monster is next to an empty space? No, you don't. You only use the 1, even if 2 monsters are touching it. So to add these scores, we have 6, 12, 14 minus 2. We're going to score 12 points there for the first round. And so to start off the next round, what we're going to do is we're going to shuffle another monster in there. This monster is going to come out because we've already used them. We're also going to reshuffle all these cards back into this deck. Then we're going to flip over this or remove the spring card, and we're going to have the summer card, which now is going to score B and C, and it also is 8 time points. But I will say in the fall, it turns down to 7, and then in the winter, it turns to 6, which I like this because it feels thematic to me. Like in the winter, you're not able to maybe explore quite as much, but you get less and less turns, potentially, or you get less and less cards for sure as the game progresses. So let's talk about the art and components. These are really nice cards, by the way. I quite enjoy these. These sheets are super thick, and these are fantastic. I also want to flip this over to show you that there's another map that's on the back of every sheet, which is more difficult because there's spaces here that you cannot use. So that's really cool, and they give you a ton. Like, I'll pull this over here. They give you a ton of these sheets here in Cartographers, which is really nice. Also, the art on these cards are like up here, like they're okay. It's fine. It doesn't need to be complex because the iconography is just simple. So I think that's fantastic. That's great. But the art on these cards is fantastic. I love the art on this game is great. I really, these pictures are just fantastic. These are really nice. I have nothing but positive things to say about the arts and components for this game. So I say, let's go ahead and let's talk about the gameplay. All right, so let's talk about gameplay. So here's some of the things that I really like about the game. Number one, I love the way that the game is scored. I really enjoy how you're going through spring, summer, fall, and winter, and you're scoring the A, B, C's, and D's differently over the course of that. So you're making those decisions in the game like, hey, should I wait and go ahead and draw this now, and knowing that it's going to score me points later, or do I really need to score those points now before I can't score B again, or before I can't score C again? Or maybe I go ahead and stack stack a whole lot on A, knowing that A will score at the beginning of the game, and then it will also score at the end of the game. I love how Winter rescores A, so you're going to go back to the beginning of that. I think that that's brilliant. I also like how there's just so many different shapes and different ways to draw these on your map. Like, I've played this game quite a few times, and everyone's map looks so different when the game is over. It just shows that there's just a ton of variety and a ton of different choices that you can make as you're drawing those shapes onto the map, including like putting those shapes around the mountains to where you can score coins or get coins that are going to score you points over the course of the game, or maybe even drawing the smaller shapes so that you can get those coins as well. And I think that that's really, really nice. And then you have the whole monsters that come out, which is cool. I like it. Now, I'll say this, if you're not a big Take That fan, you may not like this part about the game. Dean is not as big of a Take That fan as I am, and he said that this was one part of the game that he didn't like a whole lot, and that's when you're passing that sheet over to your opponent and you're letting them draw that monster on the board, because that can really hose you. You could be really, really mean with that, but for me, I just think it's fun. I'm like, all right, come on, bring the challenge on, draw that monster and let me see how I can draw around it so that I can prevent it from making me lose points. I think that's cool. I really do like that part of the game, and I like it in solo mode as well, and I'll talk about that here for a second. I thought the solo mode in this game was excellent. I really enjoyed it. Rolling rights and flipping rights, they lend themselves to being to potentially being really good at having great solo modes, and this has a really good solo mode, one of my favorites actually, so I quite enjoyed that. So I said, let's just go ahead and let's just do some final thoughts, because I don't really have anything too much negative, honestly, to say about this game. I think it's a very good game. Now, I will say that I am not the biggest roll and write or flip and write fan personally. I'm just not. It's just not my jam. For a lot of people, though, it is. And I'll say this, even though it's not my jam, I really liked this game. In fact, this is a step above Welcome 2 for me, which I enjoy Welcome 2, and it is right there with Gone Shon Clever, which is my favorite roll and write game. I'm not sure if I like this or Gone Shon Clever better. I think they're both extremely good, and for that reason, I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10, which is what I've given Gone Shon Clever. So it is at the top of my roll and write ratings. Like, it's just, again, this is not my favorite genre. There's a lot of other genres and games kind of that I would like to play, but when it comes to rolling rights or flipping rights, this is so good. If you like that genre, and even if you don't, like me, who is not the hugest fan, I really wanted to play this game just because I heard it was really good and it lived up to the expectations for me. I thought it was really fun. I think the solo mode is really good. I may end up playing the solo mode more than some of the other modes just because it's great. It's small. This game is around $20. And so I honestly, I highly recommend this game. So I'm going to go ahead and I give this a 7.5 out of 10. Really, really liked Cartographers. Now, if you're enjoying our channel, it would help us tremendously if you would subscribe to our channel. We would absolutely love it. And it'll also, if you click on that bell, it'll help you get notifications for when we come out with more videos, which we're doing weekly. So that would be huge for us and hopefully huge for you as well. If you want to check us out on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, we're all at Meepletown Games. We have a podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, on a lot of those podcasting sites. Just search Meepletown and you'll be able to find us. Also, we're Board Game Geek Guild 3407 if you want to get into some discussions with us. But in the meantime, thanks for coming down to Meepletown.
Thanks for joining us, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at Meepletown Games, and connect with us on the Meepletown Guild, Guild number 3407, at BoardGameGeek.com, and also subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. And until next time, thanks for coming down to Meepletown.